Yes, we about to get there now. Okay. Good evening, Facebook. Good evening, Instagram family. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for your patience as we had to work through a couple of difficulties here. I don't call it difficulties. Nothing difficult, right? Nothing's difficult. Just a couple of challenges, getting everything set up so that we could enjoy together the Thursday Cultural Forum. We come together each week so that we can just talk about some things that are important to us in our communities, in our community, I should say. That's important to us in our community, that helps us to stay strong during this period, and not only during this period, but always. They help us to stay strong always. So we will talk about biographies, and hey, Deanna. All right, let's see what we can do. We'll talk about biographies. We will talk about occurrences and some black facts. So this time we're going to talk a little bit about Pan-Africanists. Pan-Africanists. So, who can tell us your thoughts about Pan-Africanism in terms of a definition, in terms of its meaning to you? Just send us a comment about that. What does Pan-Africanism mean to you? Does it mean anything? Is it important? Is it important, especially as we're thinking about the world right here now, today? You know, we've been told to isolate, and the commercials come on TV and they say we're alone together, and I understand it kind of conceptually, but like we talked about last week, we are better as African people when we are together, because we have been isolated, separated, this is not a word, but I'm gonna say it anyway, diasporated all over the world. And now, and before now, as we will talk about tonight, there have been efforts for reuniting African people every place. African people, indigenous Africans on the continent, diasporic Africans all over the world, because wherever we have been, we have influence. Hey, Sister DeJaris, recognizing that African culture exists all over the world and should be recognized as such, is her definition of Pan-Africanism. And true that, definitely. Culture connects us. That's the together part. Culture connects us. It doesn't separate us. And once we get tuned in to the value and to the power and to the enjoyment and to the enrichment of what that culture is, whether we express it visually, whether we express it musically, whether we express it politically, whether we express it economically, then that's one of the definitions of Pan-Africanism. The principle or advocacy of the political union of all the indigenous inhabitants of Africa and the African diaspora. The African diaspora, of course, is any place African people are. Like right here where you are, wherever you are right now, you are a part of the African diaspora because of your presence in that place. And because of your presence in that place, you and others like you have influenced the evolution of that place by your very doing. Think about it. By your very doing, you are an influencer of things African in the place where you live. We're happy to have you, Dejaris. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I saw some of your art too on you doing some art with Ross Brown. I saw it. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. That artistic expression is a part of who we are as Africans in the diaspora as well. Mindset detox in the house. Thank you so much. So, Pan-Africanism. Africans are meant to be united so that we can learn from each other. Yes, Deanna. Yes, absolutely right. Wherever we are rooted and established, whether it's in the village, whether it's in the city, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Asia, there's influence that we create and leave there. Pan-Africanism, the principle or advocacy of the political union of all the indigenous inhabitants of Africa and the African diaspora, so that we, as you have said, to strengthen the bonds of solidarity between indigenous Africans and people everywhere in the world of African descent. So some of you may remember that in 2019, which kind of seems a long time ago, but really wasn't that long ago, Ghana, and Ghana has a particular history, and we'll revisit that in a second, but Ghana opened its door of return to welcome diasporic Africans home. So Ghana was among the first, because see, it was the Gold Coast, because colonialism was about resources, controlling and mining resources for the political and economic and social gains, of course, of the colonizer. So Ghana, as the Gold Coast, at that time was one of the first places that was of interest to European colonizers. The Dutch went there, the Portuguese went there, the British went there. And so those dungeons and castles that we see, Cape Coast Castle, Elmina Castle, of course, they were trading posts initially, re-up stations for Europeans coming through so that they could get supplies and maybe pick up some Africans. The Gold Coast. And of course, coastal for easy travel access. So Ghana then, long story shorter, became the first nation to gain its independence from Great Britain, which was its final colonizer, in 1957, in March of 1957. And when this was happening, it was in some ways based on the Pan-African mindset of the nation. Now, during this same time in the United States, there were people who were thinking about Pan-Africanism as well. Let's talk briefly about Malcolm X. He was Malcolm X as he came into the Nation of Islam, and then he became El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz as a result of his global travel. And in his global travel, of course, he went to Africa. And he was quoted to say, I said, physically, we African Americans might remain in America, fighting for our constitutional rights, but that philosophically and culturally, we Afro-Americans badly needed to return to Africa and develop a working unity in the framework of what? Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism. The ideological application of Pan-Africanism is essential and crucial to the Black Lives Matter movement, which is active here and now, particularly in the light of how health disparities are rearing their ugly head, even more so in the crisis of the coronavirus. The Pan-Africanist ideologies have been crucial to the Black Lives Matter movement because it serves as a holistic, liberatory mechanism for all Black people in the African diaspora. So what do you all think about that? What do you all think about the Black Lives Matter movement as a way of actualizing Pan-Africanism? Does it make sense to you? Who's got a comment about that? Does that make sense? Does Malcolm X's quote make sense to say that we need to return to Africa and develop a working unity in the framework of Pan-Africanism? Pan-Africanism, the political union, the cultural union, the philosophical union of indigenous Africans and diasporic Africans. Do you see that as a mechanism for liberation? Do you see that as a mechanism that could make sense with the Black Lives Matter movement right now? Y'all talk to me. Tell me what you think. We're talking about Pan-Africanism, and then later on we're going to be talking a little bit about some Pan-Africanists. So one of those Pan-Africanists is Kwame Nkrumah. We started out talking about Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah was the president of Ghana, of course, as you well know, when it gained its independence on March 6th, 1957. Kwame, of course, in the Twi language spoken by the Akan in Ghana, means boy child born on Saturday. Now, each of you, too, because of the day in which you were born, you could have such a name. In the Twi language, there are names for every day of the week, for the girl children and for the boy children. Like for me, I would be Akosawa because I was born on Sunday, girl child born on Sunday. Now, Nkrumah has been quoted to say, "The forces that unite us are intrinsic," listen to me now, "and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart." Take a breath. DeJaris, I believe it would be great if we could gain more understanding of the African culture. The question remains, how can that take place? Well, that's a great question to ask, and I'm glad you did, because the Thursday Cultural Forum and other programs of the Alegba Folklore Society are certainly a resource for that, for the understanding of African culture. And we don't even want to say the African culture, because there are over 1 billion people who speak 2,000 different languages. The cultures are very diverse, but just a sensibility, I think, is what you're talking about. Just a sensibility of what it means to say, I'm an African in America. What does that mean to say? So how can that take place? Let's keep listening. Kwame Nkrumah, president of Ghana in 1957, March of 1957, when Ghana attained its independence from Great Britain. Colonialism in Africa lasted a long, long time for generations, and neo-independence from 1957 to now is not that long of a time when we're talking about generations. So a lot of times people think about, what is going on in Africa? it's tough, especially when in many places, particularly colonial economics still prevail, to really come fully into our own. So he said, once again, the forces that unite us, this is Nkrumah talking, Kwame Nkrumah, are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart. So the part, DeJaris, you're talking about gaining more understanding, that's part of the superimposed influence that keeps us apart. So he goes further to say, I'm not African because I was born in Africa. DeJaris, this answers your question as well. I am African because Africa was born in me. We already knew. We already know. We just got to get reconnected to it. You know, it's like when I started doing African dance many years ago now, many years ago now. And at first, it was like all the things I was supposed to move to loosen up and free my mind and free my soul, because of course we are dancing from the inside out. All that stuff was stiff as a board. I ain't telling no lie. Bless you, Sarabi. I ain't telling no lie. It was stiff as a board. But after I began to realize that Africa was born in me, then it started loosening up. And I could smile, not only in the classroom, but on that stage, and hopefully send out that energy that answers your question, DeJaris, about gaining more understanding of African culture. So Kwame Nkrumah dates were 1909 to 1972. He was a Ghanaian politician and revolutionary, because revolution means what? Change. He was the first prime minister and president of Ghana. Similarly, as when apartheid ended in South Africa, then Nelson Mandela rises up to be the first president of the new South Africa. He was a founding member, Kwame Nkrumah, of the Organization of African Unity. This is now getting countries in Africa formerly colonized to come together. There was the first Congress of Independent African States. It was held in Accra in 1958. 1 year after Ghana's independence. Of course, Accra is the capital city of Ghana. And the conference aimed at the willingness of the African people to free themselves, because what do we have right here? Power. What do we have right here? Power. What do we have most of all right here? Our power. Isn't that right, DeJaris? The Congress was aimed at the willingness of African people to free themselves from foreign dictatorship and colonialism, because that's what colonialism really was, foreign dictatorship, as well as the subsequent attempts to unite Africa, and then forming the Organization of African Unity shortly thereafter in 1963. So Africans were ready to be self-actualizing, to be independent. And so after Ghana's independence in 1957, now we have Guinea coming under the leadership of Sékou Touré in 1958, and Mali coming right behind in 1960. Africans were ready. It's kind of like, and tell me some of you historians, or some of you old heads, maybe it might be on this live stream, about what similar movement in America that might remind you of. When independence happened in one place, then like a fire lit, and it happened in the next place, and it happened in the next place, and then it happened in the next place. What does that remind you of that happened right here in America, primarily on the East Coast and the South? Also in the 1960s, that's your hint. Beep, boom, boom. The lunch counter sit-ins. The lunch counter sit-ins, it was like lighting a tinderbox. It started February 1, 1960 in Greensboro, North Carolina. It came on to Virginia Union University. Yes, I know you know, Deanna, the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, it lit fire because people were ready. People say, think outside the box. But we just be in the box sometimes. And it'd be dark and we swear it's light and air in there. And neither exists. But yet we try to survive. So the lunch counter sit-ins came on to Richmond, Virginia University students, Virginia Union University students. The Virginia Union 34 in February 22nd of 1960. And then it just lit all throughout the South. The same thing happened with African countries freeing themselves or being persistent about independence from colonial powers starting in 1950 with Ghana. So the idea of the Organization of African Unity was revived in the mid-1990s by Muammar al-Gaddafi in Libya. In the mid-1990s, and then by 2001, the African Union was adopted, which exists today, along with the new Partnership for Africa's Development. All of these things are happening to bring African countries together, to bring them into their own self-actualization, and then also to think about the diaspora, because they all, via the transatlantic trade of Africans enslaved, they all have connections throughout the diaspora. So speaking of that diaspora, Kwame Nkrumah came to America in 1935. He came to America to attend Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Lincoln University was founded in 1854 as the nation's first degree granting historically black college and university. So he came there, he received a BA in 1939, a Bachelor of Theology in 1942, and then he received a Master's of Philosophy and a Master's of Education in 1942, 1943, all at Lincoln University. So now he's beginning to study some things, and he's beginning to see. Can I speak about Marcus Garvey? Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. Hold on. Kwame Nkrumah is beginning to see African people in America and African people in his home country of Ghana having some similarities in evolution and in desire. So John Henrik Clarke, who knows who John Henrik Clarke is? Give me a thumbs up if you do. John Henrik Clarke, give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Because this is another way that we get familiar with our culture, by studying the historians who are filled up with information they can share with us. I got a thumbs up on the Instagram side. I got a thumbs up over there. I don't see anybody on Facebook telling me you know about John Henrik Clarke. Okay, here comes somebody. Here comes somebody. The historian. So he said, Evelyn, talk to me quick. So John Henrik Clarke, in his article on Nkrumah's American sojourn, said that the influence of the 10 years that he spent in the United States would have a lingering effect on the rest of his life. Pan-Africanism.